Will you look at that? More epic Hydra champs. Hello, everyone. Bront CatHerder here. We're having some fun talking Raid Shadow Legends, and we're diving into Hydra again. We're diving into epic champions again because I've got 6 more really good epic Hydra champions for you. I have done a list of this before, so these are going to be 6 different epics we're going to be highlighting. I'm not going to say these are necessarily better or worse than some of these epics. It really does depend. Remember, Hydra is team content. So it doesn't matter if you have a particularly good single champion. If you don't have a team around to support them, you're not going to do well in Hydra. So hopefully these are more epics that can fill some of the great roles in Hydra. And let's go take a look. All right, first up here, we have one of the other max HP hitters in the epic category, and that's Royal Guard. Royal Guard's got actually really good kit for Hydra. He does an awful lot. You can build him for just pure damage and go just for this A2. That's the max HP enemy hit. It's a 4-turn cooldown. You don't even need to book this if that's all you're going to be doing. The extra damage is nice and it's worth the books, but he doesn't need it because he doesn't have any extra cooldowns there. And you can build him mostly for max HP, which means if you're just building him for this damage, you can put an HP chest on him without an issue. You just got to build a bunch of crit rate. Well, you want to max out the crit rate, and you build a bunch of crit damage. So, however, he's got a fun kit with some other stuff as well. He's got an A1 that's a single target decreased defense. It's not a huge chance of placing. It's a 65% chance. Can be very helpful as an additional decreased defense placer if that's what you're looking for. And then he's got a 4-turn cooldown, attacks 4 times at random, puts out decreased speed. It's not a 100% chance, it's only a 75% chance. You stick him with Sniper, and that'll help his A1 and his A2. Decreased speed is very important in Hydra. So if you're struggling to get decreased speed out there, this is better than not having it at all. Now it's random. You only have control of the first person you target, but you could get lucky and get 4 different decreased speeds out there, or you could get unlucky and he may not manage to land it at all because it's 75% chance he can miss it on all 4 of those attacks. The turn meter doesn't really help. This does, however, hit fairly hard as well. So you can build him for a decent amount of damage. Even if you don't build him for attack, if you build him with an HP chest to make him tankier for Hydra, he will still do a decent amount of damage because his multipliers are pretty good. He's got a decent amount of base attack. You can still worry about providing some additional attack as well. He's a very good champion, brings a decent amount of damage and a little bit of extra support for you. Up next, we have another champion that probably does not need an introduction, but Godseeker Neri is an amazing champion, and one of the reasons she's amazing is she is also useful in Hydra. So first of all, she has this wonderful passive that increases the amount of healing your allies receive by 10%, and this doesn't have to be healing from her, this can be healing from anybody. On top of that, she also has a revive on a 4-turn cooldown that's entirely passive. So if somebody dies, she'll do a revive on death and automatically revive them, meaning she doesn't even have to waste a turn reviving somebody. Now, revive on death is not the greatest revive. I don't know exact HP on it. It's like 40 or 50% HP, not a lot of turn meter. But revive on death does revive them, which means that they don't have to be actively revived. And it's an extra revive, making her almost as effective as an AoE reviver if you lose multiple champions at the same time. Do be aware that this works on the champion that is in the front going to the back more often. So if everyone dies, it'll revive the first person on your team, not everybody or not her first. So it prioritizes based on the order in the layout of the team. Do be aware of that. She also has a fairly decent revive too. Revive 50% HP, some turn meter, and resets all the cooldown and all skills on a 4-turn cooldown as well. So she basically has 2 different 1-target revives on 4-turn cooldowns. One of them doesn't require her to take a turn, which is absolutely amazing. Meanwhile, she also has an AoE attack that can actually smack and do a decent amount of damage. It is defense-based for the damage. You can build her for damage if you want to. If you don't build her for damage, you're going to build her for some defense anyway, so she's still going to be pretty tanky. You do want to get some HP in there as well. It has a chunky heal of 15% of their max HP, which, to be fair, is not as good as it could be because it's their max HP, but she has the additional 10% passive already, plus you can get plus 20% more of it if you book it down as well. Books to a 3-turn cooldown. It also decreases the duration of all buffs on the enemy by 1 turn if you have accuracy on her. And if you don't have accuracy on her, you still get the increased duration of all your buffs by 1 turn. She's one of the few champions that does this. She pairs very well with Wixwell. If you've done Wixwell and you have that fusion, the two of them will keep the shields up pretty well because you now have two different extensions. You get a third extension in there and you can keep them up indefinitely. She is a wonderful, wonderful champion. She even has an A1, does okay damage, hits one enemy, heals the ally with the lowest HP by 5%, will not heal her. So it's the lowest HP champion that is not her by 5%. Not amazing, not a lot of extra healing, but hey, it's a little bit extra. If she's counterattacking occasionally or she's doing an ally attack, it's a little bit of an extra healing that gets involved. And plus she has the extra bonuses with healing as well. Godseeker is a great champion, and a great champion will be useful anywhere, but she is definitely useful in Hydra. Whisper is one of these forgotten champions that not everyone seems to know who to use or how to use her, but she is absolutely amazing as a single target damage dealer. And a single target damage dealer can do a lot of damage in Hydra because there's times when you need to do single target damage. Bring a little bit of extra support with Whisper, and she will be absolutely amazing. Whisper's kit is a holistic kit, however, so you need to look at the entire kit to understand why she's so good. She's got an A1 that does weaken for 2 turns. It's a 50%, goes up to a 75%. Not super amazing, but it is 1 turn. But she plays off of that weaken. Of course, you're probably better off bringing another champion that does place weaken along with her if you can, so do be aware of that. She has a attacks one enemy, places a 50% increased attack buff, increased crit rate buff, and attacks the target, has a higher max HP of the champion. She'll ignore defense if the target is under weaken. So she buffs herself with increased attack and increased crit rate. So you can have her with low crit rate if you wanted to. She has the increased attack that she puts on herself, which is very nice as well. That's a lot of extra damage. And she can ignore defense if the target's under weaken. Ignoring defense is huge in Hydra because that leads to true damage, and true damage can be absolutely amazing. She has an A3, attacks one enemy 2 times, grants an extra turn if the target is under decreased defense and weaken debuffs. So now she's getting an extra turn on this at a 4-turn cooldown. She can cycle this back around. It's a 3-turn cooldown. It becomes less if she's constantly getting extra turns. She'll get her A1 off a little more often because she's getting some of these extra turns as well. And then finally, she has a 10% chance of granting an extra turn whenever this champion lands a critical hit. This damage inflicted on bosses by 20% as well. So she does 20% extra damage to bosses, so she can be a boss killer. She has a 10% chance of granting a critical hit every time she attacks. She has a wonderful, wonderful kit, will take lots of turns. If you can put her in Relentless, she'll can keep on taking more and more turns. She already ignores defense in her kit, so you don't necessarily need to put her in Savage or Lethal or something like that, although you still can. And in fact, putting her in that will help with the other 2 attacks as well. And she just does an absolute ton of damage. She's not the squishiest champion, but she's not super fast. She's not super tanky either. So you're going to have to build her out with a little bit of HP, or you're going to have to make sure you have other ways to keep her alive and kicking as you go. But she can take multiple turns in a row, which is a great way to get a champion going, and she can hit really hard at every attack. So she is a absolute beast of a damage dealer in Hydra. Again, single target, but you know what? Single target can be great, particularly if you're trying to get out champions that have been digested. Now, one of the squishiest champions I'll probably suggest here is Thylesia. I love Thylesia. She is great. She does a lot of damage and she brings a lot to the table, but she has definitely got low max HP at 1200. It's not very high. She's got some decent defense, so you can certainly raise her defense a bit, but you do have to worry about keeping her alive. But what makes her really cool is the way her kit works. Even unbooked, she's got a 4-turn decreased defense 100%. So you don't even need to book this. If you do book it, it becomes a 3-turn cooldown, which is great. Because at 3 turns, you can then pair it with this skill that increases the duration of all debuffs on all enemies by 1 turn. So she can keep decreased defense up 100% of the time on a 3-turn cooldown if she's booked. And if she's not booked, it's almost always up on a 4-turn cooldown with a 3-turn effective buff. But there's more to that kit than that. She's got an A1 that has a 50% chance of applying debuff spread effect on 1 random debuff and placing it on all enemies under Hex. So she plays well with Hex, and this increases to a 70% chance if she's booked. You can put Sniper on, that will certainly help a little bit as well. But she also has a 50% chance, again, Sniper will increase this a little bit, of placing Hex on enemies that already have decreased defense. And since she can keep it up 100% of the time, and her decreased defense landing ability counts towards this as well. She can keep Hex up very well as one of the better epics to provide Hex. It's a little bit random, so you do have to play with it. You definitely are going to want Sniper to help with that. She also smacks. She's got 2 different AoEs. You could stick her in another set. If you don't want to worry about relying on this as much, maybe you could even stick her in Cursed, and then she could be applying Hex with Cursed, or applying Hex this way, or applying Hex in other ways, and then that plays into her debuff spread, which can be great. And keeping Hex on the boss is great, and Hex is a great way to do additional damage. So we're going to have several decreased defense champs on this list, and Duck is another one of those. Duck is a defense-based champion, so he is super tanky. He can hit really hard. He's got a fun kit for Hydra, and it's a little bit different than what you might be expecting. So first of all, he's got an A1 that's a double hitter that has a chance of placing decreased accuracy. This isn't a big deal, but it is a double hitter that actually does a decent amount of damage. And again, he's a defense-based champ that does damage based on defense. So he'll smack fairly hard. He'll be very tanky. Decreased accuracy doesn't hurt to have on the enemy. So it's not one of these required. It's not something you're going to be relying on, but it never hurts to have decreased accuracy out there. So he puts it out there with that A1. His A2 attacks all enemies, places decreased attack, and places decreased defense if each hit is a critical hit. So you give him 100% critical hit rates. He'll get decreased attack out on everyone. He'll get decreased defense on everyone. He'll hit very hard. It becomes a 3-turn cooldown if you book it. Decreased attack and decreased defense are 2 of the core debuffs you want in Hydra. You want to decrease how much damage the Hydra is doing to you, and you want to increase the amount of damage you are doing to the Hydra. And these are the 2 buffs that do that. Makes him an absolute beast of a support champion, in addition to a damage dealer. And if you can get damage out of your supports, that's a great way to increase your damage in Hydra. The other thing he has, and this is something I would probably turn off unless you're manually controlling him, because he does need to target this manually. He has a 4-turn cooldown provoke, where he places the provoke. This means he can provoke the cleansing head through Poison Cloud. Now it puts unkillable on him and reflect damage on him, which means he could become a mischief tank if you're worried about that. Neither of these are deal breakers. Reflect damage is not great to have on the boss. Unkillable is really not going to do much of anything, because once you decapitate a head, it'll just move on, and it may just mean you have to hit him a few extra times to do the unkillable, get through the unkillable. Reflect damage doesn't suck to have, isn't going to cause a lot of extra headaches for you if the enemy gets it. You do have to be careful of some of the max HP hits if they get a reflect damage. With the decreased accuracy, however, he might not actually get it, because you might be able to decrease the accuracy on mischief if you get it. So gives you a good AoE, does a decent amount of damage, has a utility A1, very tanky, very good champion. And finally, to round off our 6, we've got Stag here. Stag is very similar to Duck, got a similar kit, a little bit different utility. So his A1 can put decreased speed up. As I mentioned, decreased speed is a great debuff to have. It's not 100% reliable, but it is each hit, and he hits twice, and he can get this up to a 50% chance. You give him Sniper, which you really need in his kit, gets him up to a 55% chance on 2 hits. You've got over a 75% chance of landing decreased speed on any one target you attack at any point in time. Great A1. It actually hits fairly hard as well. And to be fair, Stag Knight's very useful in Fire Knight, so he's a champion you're going to be building for other content as well. And a Fire Knight build will work just fine in Hydra in most cases. His A2 is an AoE hit that does decreased defense and decreased attack. It's got 95% chance when booked. You give him Sniper, it has 100% chance, and it's on a 3-turn cooldown. Nice simple kit. He does a lot of damage. He actually has really good multipliers, even though his attack is not particularly high. He has a huge max HP, so he is very tanky, making it really easy for you to build him 4 damage in Hydra without sacrificing some ability to tank. Overall, he's a great champion. He's got a great speed as well. And he's even got this wonderful passive here. 50% increased accuracy buff on an ally for 1 turn if they fail to land a debuff that gets resisted. So if you're not quite hitting the accuracy you need, or you're getting resisted, you may have champions that get increased accuracy suddenly because of Stag Knight. So very, very good champion. Gives you damage, gives you all the debuffs you need, gives you a lot of different debuffs you need. Very, very useful in Hydra. Now, all of these champions will certainly depend on the affinity, unless they're void. Stag is going to be better if there's not a lot of magic heads in the Hydra rotation, whereas Duck is going to be better unless there's a lot of force heads in the rotation. So You may actually be swapping out a duck for a stag knight, for example, whether or not you use a royal guard or looking to a previous video, husk. That may depend on the affinities as well. You know, there's some things you're going to play with Hydra, looking at the specific heads. You're also going to be looking at what does your team need. You may not actually need the decreased defense. Maybe you have an increased attack from somebody else. Whether or not stag is going to be useful in your team is really going to depend on the rest of the team. So hopefully these have been useful champions. Hopefully this brings some light, some utility situations you can use them for. There's plenty of ways to build these champions. I've got other videos where we've talked about ways to build them. Overall, I think they're great epics to use. I use a couple of them occasionally in some of my Hydra teams. I use them for Hydra takeovers. I think they can help you quite a bit. So until the next time, if you get a chance, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. If you've got any other epics I have not highlighted yet, please leave a comment and let me know, and maybe they'll be featured in a further video. Appreciate you guys. You all take care. Have a great one. Till next time, I'm Bront CatHerder.